All right, good morning, ladies and gents. Happy Saturday. It's the weekend, and we got a nice edition of the Pocket Change Market Report for the day, October 4, 2025. Welcome to fall, man. A lot of excitement, a lot of fervor in the hobby right now as we are gearing up to 2026. A lot of big changes on the horizon. You've heard a good fair amount of them from myself, but you're going to see this firsthand as we move very close to the new year. 250th anniversary is no joke. This is a moment in numismatic time where this is it. This is the big gala, the big event that we've all been waiting for, and the Mint has stated that they are going to pull off all the stops here. So we're going to see some pretty crazy stuff, not only from the circulation side of things, but from also the U.S. Mint as they release just a banging lineup of various coins that you could buy into. Right now, we're seeing that portrayed very well in current 2025 product right now, as a lot of sellouts are happening. Call it what it is. I don't know, a little bit of FOMO in there. The price of silver and gold continues to skyrocket. We're up over $48 an ounce. We're inching so close to 50, and the spec is $100 by the end of the next year. I'll believe it when I see it, but nobody's talking about this quiet, steady trend upwards all across the hobby. And even in littler sectors like varieties and errors that we normally talk about in the PCMR, also showing a lot of movement as well. All right, so we're going to talk about some of the top coins that folks like you and I are finding out there, errors, varieties, key dates, things like that, stuff that you could find out there at shows or going through change, bank rolls, coin shops, things of that nature. Turn around, flip them right online, make some money, kind of make it like a little side hustle. Myself included, I do this on a weekly basis, and it feeds families. And here we are heading into the holidays where, regular consumer goods and everything like that is not as cheap as it used to be. So a lot of folks will be cashing in their coins. They'll be wrapping up their piggy banks, taking them to the bank. And, you might find, some older collections that get cashed in, which will be a boon for you guys. So we're going to take a look at these here momentarily. Quick little sponsor shout out to Whatnot. My goodness, they have been absolutely amazing here as of late. We've been doing a lot of shows. Man, it's been a lot of fun. And we've also, fostered a community of folks that have come in. They want to know some answers to some questions, and we're able to do that then and there through our live stream services. So we also have these auctions, but we're also talking to the people like you and I and other folks who are really enjoying the hobby but want to just know more. All right, we have that ability to do so right on stream, and then we're in a community with a bunch of other folks. I would say go ahead and join today. A lot of my viewers, I would say, good fair amount of you have joined, but we could always use more. Sign up today under me. You get $15 off your very first item, and that can be used with any seller on the platform. It's a lot of fun to be involved, and you can use the QR code right on screen, or we'll have the simple links down below in the description box. And heck, for you guys, because I love you guys, we're going to go ahead and pin it into the comments section as well. So there's a couple different avenues to take advantage of that. So go ahead and join. We're doing giveaways all holiday season long. Big shows, little shows, everything else in between. We're going to be doing multiple shows every week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Come check things out today. All right, so sorry about that long, dramatic kind of intro. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Don't know if you guys ever seen a blank large cent planchet. There you go. That's what it looks like. Unstruck, weighing 10.9 grams, which it's right in that wheelhouse, for a large cent. Probably was used to produce like braided hairs, something a little bit more along the years there. But yeah, I mean, if you do come across this and it has that that upset rim on there, and it's ready to be struck into a finished product. That is a blank Type 2 planchet, and that's exactly what we have here. These have popped up on a number of occasions. Would I say that they are undeniably rare? Probably not. Based off the fact that I think right now you could go on eBay and type in large cent blank planchet and probably find a couple of them available for sale. But these do pop up, about as frequently as large Ike dollar blank planchets, I would say. Which not too many, but if you needed one, you could find one. You're going to pay a little bit of money here. This one ended up selling, by the way, for $199.99. Is a blank planchet, and this is kind of like the question I've heard, is it considered a mint error? It's considered a mint error in the fact that they never struck this. They just, whatever happened, it happened. There's always kind of like that question that people have kind of wondered about blank planchets and all that. So there you go. Hopefully it gave you kind of like a half-assed answer, I suppose. It's the best I could do. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to see, non-traditional pieces like this. And, this is more of a case of if you find something like this, do not trash it. Some people see it, it's just like a copper plug or, a punch out to a conduit or whatever. Although those things are steel or nickel or whatever it's what they're made of. But yeah, a couple $100 and you could own a piece of history there. Laminations, yeah, have been getting a little bit of extra press here lately. I'm partly to blame, to be absolutely honest, and prices, just continue to hold steady, a little higher ticks here and there depending on how dramatic the laminations are. So we have this 1948 Lincoln wheat cent with a reverse lamination, kind of like flipped up and folded, but for the most part retained. A lot of folks prefer retained laminations that are still on the coin for like visual effect. This one right here is sold for $17.49 to give you guys some insight as to why these things are where they're at price-wise. If we look back just 2 years ago, a lot of these couldn't sell no more than like, $2 to $5 a piece. Yeah, they're about as common as some of the other, mid-airs like, clips and things like that. So, depending on how much older you're looking at in coinage, you're going to find more laminations of, say, like the 30s, 40s, and 50s than you would, in much later modern coins. Next one that we have here, this is one that would escape a lot of people if you don't know what you're looking for. 2018 P Voyagers National Park Quarter. It looks like it's slightly off center. That's probably something that would draw most people to it. But boy, look at the edge on that thing. Right where the gripped reeded edge would normally be. You can see that it's partially struck. They call this a partial tilted collar. All right, so the collar, which is this big old kind of like metal ring that holds the coin in place during the strike, was not engaged. All right. So with that being said, if that's not engaged at all, then it'll either be tilted or non-existent, and it's going to create all sorts of things. This one here, it's partially engaged to where, you're able to see some of the reading being struck. But overall, you can see that it's got like a railroadish kind of look to it. Is what they call it, but railroad rim and a few other kind of terminologies is what they throw out there in the coin world today. But if the collar was not at all engaged, it allows things like off centers and broad strikes and things like that, much more major stuff. So partial tilted collars have a very limited market. All right, these are the type of coins that, if you listed for like $10-15, buy it now, it might sit around for a while. This one here ended up selling for $14.80. It's kind of like a, something of a much more modern coin with this somewhat dramatic mint-error. Will make it a little bit more desirable than some of the other minor pieces. Always a good one to look at here. And believe it or not, 1894 Indian head cents enjoy a much scarcer run. The mintages are a lot lower than all of the other dates around it. If you went from, say, 1880 all the way up to 1909 at the end of the series, 1894 is the lowest minted out of the whole bunch. All right. So, the coin in itself, dealers, they'll try and sell these at a little bit of a premium, nothing too crazy. But there is one dramatic variety that you guys need to know about. And this one is a very strong repunch date. You could see it very evidently on the 8, 9, and 4. The 9 and 4 are the most dramatic parts of this repunch date. And keep in mind that way back a long time ago, 130 years ago, they were punching the numbers independently into the working die, which allowed for things like this to occur. So this one right here, I believe it's Snow 1 is the attribution number, and it's a FS listed Cherry Picker's Guide variety. So this one right here, in its current condition, which is not a very high grade specimen, still ended up selling for $31. So ugly does sell. Varieties of this nature, once they get to a certain grade level, they become wildly expensive. And people that just want an example that looks decent will still pay a little bit of money. So there is definitely a lot of room here to be able to cater to everyone's needs, and still without having to sacrifice like selling this thing for $5. Because that doesn't need to happen, especially when there's a dearth amount of this particular variety out in the open market. Here's another cool one here too. Just a Lincoln cent. The seller claims it's a 1995. The last digit obviously missing on there, along with just an overall general weakness of a lot of the design. Leads me to believe that this one was struck through grease. So there was something definitely obstructing on the dies that's preventing a nice full strike on the coin. This one right here sold for $16.69. Again, much like laminations, we could go back into the not so recent past and see that these things really didn't sell for a couple bucks back, like 5 years ago. The game has changed as more people are looking for kind of like more affordable areas to collect into. And folks will collect these by date if they could read the date. But due to its somewhat dramatic nature, it makes them a little bit more appealing today. All right. Really cool one here. 1994. And yes, there is a somewhat of a readable date per the seller. This one was struck through a very late stage cap die. So there was a coin stuck to the face of the obverse die, which has Lincoln and the date and all that stuff. And it was striking a bunch of coins. Now, keeping in mind that coins stuck to the die had never dislodged. So after so many strikes, that coin, that cap, will continue to get thinner and thinner and thinner with the pressure of that of all the strikes it's made, to the where it will end up being like razor thin, like paper thin. So when we say very late stage, that means that the cap is very thin. The original design of the die will begin to punch through that thin, razor thin cap, creating some semblance of the design of the coin. But as you can tell, a fully struck reverse on this one. They kind of go hand in hand. Nothing like the previous coin where it was struck through grease. This one is all on one side. Nice sale here, $162.85. This is a mid-era that is much more harder to find on later dates. This one, 1994, is a copper-plated zinc era piece. We usually find more of the cap die strikes on older dates, pre-1982 into the Copper Age. Those, typically command like $30 to $50, for a lot of the usual dates, 1980, 81, things like that. Roosevelt Dimes getting all sorts of attention, with the upcoming redesign next year. It's really brought more resurgence, more refreshing to the series, which, for the longest time has been downtrodden, just with not too much, I guess, desirability to collect into it because for a few factors. It's a much smaller coin. It's the smallest coin that the U.S. makes for circulation. It's a design that's been around, that's kind of tired, to be honest. But now, things are different. People have a whole new respect and kind of outlook for this coin with the redesign, and we don't know after 2026 if they're going to change it indefinitely or go back to this existing design. I've heard that they're going to go back to the existing design, which might be a little bit more of a buzzkill than anything else in the series and its future prospects. But this one right here, a really dramatic off-center 1987p, quite nice. This thing is amazing. It's huge, and while not perfect by any stretch, how about $41.65 on the sale, 20 bits. So this one had a lot of action, a lot of eyeballs. More Roosevelt dimes to come, because it's really incredible what we're seeing here from this series. 1982, here's another great one here. Now, this one was struck in Philadelphia, and at this point, they're adding mint marks to the working dies. This one is supposed to have a physical P mint mark for Philadelphia. Now, there was some error, back in the day where they accidentally left off the mint mark on the working dies, and it was only 1982p. All right, this is the only known circulating coin that you could find with a missing mint mark error. And that's this one here. So this one is what they call the strong version, which has a very nice heavy strike. There is a weak version, which is not as desirable, but still kind of pricey. This one right here, by the way, ending at $189.35, is a good piece to find. They are still out there. Folks are still looking for it. The only thing is that not a lot of people are roll hunting dimes, not even for silver, which is kind of strange considering that we're seeing new fresh growth of the series with the upcoming redesign. So maybe it's just the individual pieces, the collector community wants you to find them and then sell them so that way they can buy it. But this does not equate to more hunting activity in Roosevelt dime rolls, unfortunately. Another lamination on a series where it's rife with this kind of error, improper alloy mixes along with improper annealing and all that stuff. Really did a number on this series. So this is a 1917 Buffalo nickel. Pretty dramatic reverse lamination, just like striations and cracks going all over the place there. Again, there's impurities in the alloy mix, and then, with the extra amount of heat with the annealing process in the prep of the plans, really did a number on these. So there was a lot of really crappy presentation quality coins, some nice key dates with laminations that ended up, going through the system, a century ago, and, to this day. It's either going to play very favorably to a coin's desirability or it's going to kill the value, especially on much more desirable key dates. Like a 26S with lamination, I'd feel would be less of a commodity to a lot of collectors rather than, say, just a regular circulated coin. So this one right here sold for $19.80. Okay, not too bad considering it's probably like a VG10, somewhere in that area of grade. Always these notes here always going to be desirable. Now this one right here kind of escaped with a lower than normal sale. 2017 A series $2 bill star note. This one has the over inked top right star of that serial number there. There you go, a little close up. So these normally have a little white dot right in the middle of the star. Okay, and it doesn't take much. A little oversaturation of the ink for that area to over ink it a little bit to where it fills in. Okay, something that we're seeing more of, but the production of star notes is no longer around. Okay, they stopped that practice earlier this year because of new machinery. So with that being said, old star note, kind of like variants, like the filled star version has been getting a lot more attention recently. These things shot up, to like 60 to 75 bucks. And, sometimes one will come across cheap, fall through the cracks a little bit. This one, by the way, selling for $31.35 with 24 bids. That's a steal. And a lot of these are being found in gem crispy condition as they're being pulled out of bank straps, you know. So definitely still something to be on the lookout for there. There's going to be a lot of people that aren't asking for $2 bills at the banks. And, you know, the banks sometimes are not going to carry these. It's always worth kind of, you know, entertaining to see if they have any $2 bills, because, you know, there are other things you could find on these as well. All right, another big Roosevelt dime here. And, you know, this one here is 77 Rosie with a pair of clips. One really big curved clip and a little bit smaller, shallower version of that. $55. Unheard of, because if this was on a nickel or some other coin, a Lincoln cent, this thing would sell for less than half of what this one did. So again, we're seeing a new kind of like trend for Roosevelt dimes, a lot of favorable type stuff. People are paying into Roosevelt dime errors more than they ever have. 1982 large date copper Lincoln set, kind of rough shape. It's got some pretty big deep gouges on the reverse, big rim dent as well by the T and cent. But yeah, I mean, this one has a pretty nice size cut right there in the motto, so it's covering in and the G in God. So a piece of the die had cracked and fallen out at some point during the production process of these coins. This one right here, by the way, is selling for $43.80. So pretty big sale. And I'm not saying that condition doesn't matter. It matters less, you know, depending on the size of the cut. You know, the size of a cut on a rough looking coin will still sell for a good fair amount of premium. 1936S. I like this one. I found a few of these, and it's common to find. But you know, the cool part is this is a date that is very affordable in low grades. You know, anything like VF and lower, you know, you can find these for $1 or less. But pretty nice dramatic repunch mint mark. This is the FS 501, by the way, a Cherry Picker's Guide variety. RPM number 1, I believe. That secondary S mint mark is punched south. Yeah, it looks like a bunch of snakes just kind of coiling, you know, right on top of each other. It's really neat. $16.99 is what this one sold for. So again, based off of that price, there's enough, you know, supply to fulfill demand. You have to be really into varieties in order to find the value of this one. But if you did find it, you know, in just like a bulk lot of Buffalo nickels, this is one, ladies and gents, that you should sell if you don't want it in your collection. That's going to go ahead and pad your money situation, you know, and you sell a couple, 3 or 4 of these, and you're going to do really well. Yeah, let's not forget that in 2015, the Lincoln cents, there's a pretty big variety. This is the WDDO number 6. Pretty strong doubling, as you can see. Now, the seller only ended up doing close-ups of the date, and they did not put any full obverse or reverse images. Again, I'm telling you, you should do that because there might be a condition kind of aspect to the coin that is not immediately known that a buyer may not like, or they might like. You know, it's kind of hard to say. I feel like that this one at some point in the future will end up being a Cherry Picker's Guide variety. You know, it's that strong. A lot nice separation. You have the cat's eye 0 in there as well, which is kind of cool. $24.84, and the seller did say that this came out of a BU roll of this date of Lincoln cent. This is a cool $100 bill. Unfortunately, it's a $100 bill. This is a partial back-to-front wedding transfer. You can actually see it there on the right side of the note, the right 25% of this one. You can see the transfer, the green to the front, and it's backwards. It's mirrored, which is what you want to see on a wedding transfer. So here's kind of a deal with these higher denomination notes with what we consider to be like low-tier errors. The denomination is so high that it's hard to make a ton of money off these, as opposed to a $1 bill with the same mint error that you could sell for maybe 40, 50 bucks. This one sold for $137 with 13 bids. It seems like a lot of money, but you have to keep in mind, you have the $100 of face value. That's your cost of ownership of the note. So anything above and beyond the face value of the note that you have put into it is going to be your net profit, or gross profit rather, because you also have to take into consideration eBay fees and shipping and all that stuff. And the way eBay fees are right now, it's like 13.9%. You're not going to be making a whole lot of money selling this note. You know, that $37 in gross profit after the face value, it's going to end up being probably $20, because, you know, the 13.9% on $137 is like 15 bucks or more. So, you know, and that's not even including shipping. So, I mean, if you got it, sure, you could sell it. You might be able to do a buy it now of like $169.99 to make it better for you. But you know, you might be sitting on the note for a little bit. $100 is a lot of denomination to tie up to if you're working on a budget. I will say this is a very beautiful higher grade note too. I mean, there is that. I mean, that is working very well for this piece. 1991. This is a 91 Philly Jefferson nickel, massive centered broad strike. What else can we say? This thing is just gorgeous. It's large and in charge, about the size of a quarter, if not maybe a little bit larger than that. This one here is selling for $25.60, which I think is a little bit of a pretty good bargain on this. Yeah, cannot believe that this one sold for what it did in 1936. Lincoln wheat cent. Pretty cool variety. Doubled die obverse FS103 Cherry Picker's Guide variety. Selling for $89. That is a really good deal, because you don't find mid-state red varieties from this era that often. Okay, it's not like the craziest variety. I mean, you have doubling on the motto "In God We Trust." If you look at like the G, O, and D, you can see the doubling there. You see the doubling better on Liberty. It's also got kind of like the broken peg leg R as well. That's another thing to look for. But you can see the split on every single letter. You can see notching at the very bottom of each letter. $89. And I did a little research. If this thing was sent to, say, PCGS and it graded Mid-State 64, it's like a $250 coin. So someone could take this, and you know, this is like the one exception where I'd bring up coin grading in a PCMR, is if you found something like this and it's just like too good to pass up for grading. You know, if you're not going to add it into your collection as like a variety piece and you just want to kind of like take advantage of how cheap it was, yeah, you could make some money here. Probably after grading fees and all that, you probably net out $100 in profit on this one. Next one that we have here, okay, just a nice little kind of like fancy serial number. We don't have our dedicated videos where we do like a serial number market report like we used to. So we'll pop them in every so often into PCMRs. This one has kind of like a little bit of a low serial number, and then you have a repeater. So the 6565 is a repeating part of the serial number. But very nice, clean, high-grade note here. Yeah, I didn't even tell you how much it sold for. So they were offering $119.99 on that note, and the best offer was accepted, but I can't pull that information right now because the website I'm using, they're having issues. This is a cool one here. A very older issue, too. 1807 over 6 variety draped bust cent. Far from perfect. It's got all sorts of scratches and all that. Very well worn, too. Probably an AG to good coin, but it does have that date that's very easy to see and recognizable. It's got the swollen die right there behind Lady Liberty's, I guess, like lower hair area, which is common for this particular overdate. $74.75. So it's a nice, I guess, budget kind of example for the overdate there, which is very popular, but albeit, you know, it's about as common as a regular 1807. 2020, they called this one the COVID Bat Quarter. When it first came out, it was kind of like a very, very wild, surreal, issue at the time, when the country was going through a pretty big event. So, yeah. I mean, people were finding all sorts of crazy strike throughs on these, right on the mama bat's face. This one has a nice, sized strike through right on the right eye there. Of course, the bat is upside down. That's how they live and sleep and all that great stuff. So there you go, flipped up, right side up. You can see that there was at some point, some like grease and debris that's sitting on the die. So when it strikes the coins, it's going to end up with an omission of like design work there. $32.48 with 7 bids. There are variants of this where it completely covers the bat's face, strike through wise. And they call this a field restricted strike through because it also involves the feeder finger as it makes contact with the head of the die, or the face of the die rather. And that's why you see those little lines coming off of the bat's face there on the left side. And the final piece for the day, 1955, a Lincoln wheat cent. It's actually a pretty decent condition coin. But it does have what looks to be a part of the back that's sitting there on the left side. So a little detached lamination piece there. Not going to lie, this one was helped along. It's pretty evident and seen right there. And that's a bummer. This one ended up selling, by the way, for $38.95 with 14 bids. People will call this damaged at this point, when this happens. But, I don't think really a lot of people will balk at that as much as you think. Most of the error purists will say keep that piece attached to the coin. And, in this particular case, for a dramatic effect, they took it off the coin, and there you go. It ended up being sold and doing pretty well, actually. All right, well, that's going to go ahead and wrap things up. Did you guys have a favorite coin, by the way? I would love to hear it in this one. Information provided is for educational use only, not financial advice. Keep that in mind. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Thank you guys so much again for a great show. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And if you're out there kind of doing the hunting thing, that I hope you guys find your piece and your treasures, and also those coins that you're going to flip and make some mad money for the holidays. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys again for a great show. You guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you on the next coin video. So long.